The 2026 World Cup could be one of the most memorable World Cups, a celebration of the sport, an awesome time, or it could be a complete train wreck and disaster. Today I'm going to be reacting to the scary truth about the 2026 World Cup. I have my own thoughts about this, but let's hear what this content creator has to say. Shout out to Nitro Football.
Copa America 2024 was a thrilling tournament, both on and off the field. And it had everything.
Oh yeah. If we couldn't handle the Copa America, and we had some issues, let's just say some issues. And what are we going to do with a World Cup?
You might want as a football fan, apart from competent officiating. Climbing through air vents.
Oh, it's so triggering, man. That was the worst official. I'm gonna leave it there.
To get into the stadium, I mean, what is going on? It begs the question if the USA is actually ready to host the World Cup in 2026, because that's just gonna be the Copa America, but on steroids. Copa America 2024 was off to a bad start before it even begun, because CONMEBOL decided that 11 out of the 14 venues that were going to be hosting these games would be at NFL stadiums,
right,
which is American football. These stadiums are great for one thing, holding people, because they are big stadiums, 60,000, 70,000, maybe even 80,000 people at some venues. The downside to it is they're made for American football, and those fields are much smaller. With those field dimensions, that stadium's built around, and so it's not possible to really expand it to an actual football pitch, which meant that CONMEBOL needed to make the pitch dimensions the absolute smallest possible allowed in a professional FIFA match.
Wow.
I mean, these dimensions are about the same as what U13 players use.
It didn't seem that small to me. I went to which then again, I've never been to a professional match in person before. So I guess that might be one of those reasons, but it didn't seem that small to me being there at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas. I watched United States versus Bolivia, and it didn't seem like that it was that small of a pitch. A lot of fun during that game, but that's probably coming from my perspective, having not seen an actual professional pitch in person.
Transition between 9v9 and 11v11. On top of that, NFL games are played on synthetic turf, which is like the worst playing surface for causing injuries, other than maybe that one Sunday league field that we all have close to our house. Either way, this was mandated against CONMEBOL's rules. So they said you had to bring in grass to play on, and so they did, and they just put it on top of the synthetic turf. And Scaloni, the Argentinian manager, complained about this after the first game of the tournament. They said that, yeah, it wasn't pretty football, but we had to do what we had to do because of the turf. It was a terrible playing surface. So they were complaining about it from day one, and everybody complained about it, including Marcelo Bielsa.
See, I didn't remember that. They brought in a real field on top of the other field. I think it depends on the venue, because I think some of our venues have the ability to change out the field a little bit better than others, but I guess I don't have all of my facts lined up, so I guess I'll stop talking about it. It's crazy because Tottenham has that system where you can move the pitch and bring up an actual football field, an American football field, for when they host the NFL games, and I think that's an interesting thing.
Bielsa, who also complained about quite a few other things, and basically said that it's just not professional to play on fields like this. And then when it came to the final between Argentina and Colombia, Lionel Messi had to be carried off the field because of a non-contact injury, which is much more common on turf fields. It's hard to imagine that it didn't play some sort of factor in that injury. CONMEBOL must think that we're dumb, but we are not. Let's put it all together. 1. They decided that the tournament would include Canada, Mexico, and the USA to appeal to a massive North American market that they've never had before in order to get a better TV deal with Fox Soccer. That would lead to a lot more money for the organization. Then, number 2, they decided that the USA was going to host these matches so that they could appeal to a very diverse population in the States, especially in the cities that were selected are very Latino and Hispanic based, which means that no matter who made it farther in the tournament, they'd be able to sell tickets no matter what. 3, they chose stadiums that did not have any regard for the safety of the players or the integrity of the sport itself. They were too small, yet they were massive stadiums that could sell more tickets. So is it really that far-fetched if us as a consumer were to say that maybe they also skimped out on security to save a few more extra
They definitely did that.
bucks? I don't think it's that far of a leap. However, CONMEBOL released a statement, and I quote, "Nah, not our fault, blame the stadiums," which maybe I paraphrased a little bit, but they said that the stadiums were at fault for the security. The stadiums were at fault for the bad field. It wasn't their fault at all, which doesn't make much sense given that they chose those venues in the first place. But this is where it raises a ton of concern to if the USA is actually ready to host the World Cup, because some of the stadiums that were used in Copa America are the exact same venues that are going to be used in the World Cup, which is not a good sign because the World Cup is going to have 3 times the teams, probably 100 times the fans, and it's going to be 100 times crazier. In fact, the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, which was the forefront for the biggest disaster in all of Copa America, is not hosting 1 World Cup match, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 World Cup matches in less than 2 years, and that is something that is a little bit scary. So the question is, will the USA be able to get this done in those 2 years?
I'm a little less skeptical or a little less cynical than this guy. I think that and maybe I'm too optimistic here. I think that the World Cup is going to come with a different level of focus, not just even from our federation, but from actually our nation. Like, I feel like people realize that the World Cup is a big deal. I think that the Copa America was huge for American soccer fans. Football fans. But I think it was huge for our fans of the game. I think that the average American recognizes, even if they don't watch the sport at all, that the World Cup is a very big deal. And I think that Americans don't want to be embarrassed on a international stage like that. They want to be respected. So I think that one of the things is that this was just the Copa America was poorly managed. It was a large fault, CONMEBOL's problem, and there was a lot of problems with it from the beginning. And I'm not saying there couldn't be problems with it. This is, like, he's right. There's cause for concern. Like, we probably really need to think through some of these things. But I am a little less cynical that this will be a disaster. I do think that America is going to, not even just football fans, I think that there's going to be a lot of very serious discussion by governors of these states of, like, how they can make the process more streamlined. You're going to see, local and federal government trying to do their best to make this thing go off without any sort of controversy. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a much more focused, organized, well-hosted tournament. At least that's my hope. I don't want there to be a disaster. I don't want to be embarrassed on the world stage like this. I'd like for us to host a very good, fair, honest tournament, above board. I'd like for the USA to perform well in the tournament and outside of the tournament. And so I just it's one of those things where I feel like people recognize that the World Cup is a way bigger deal than the Copa America. And so I think you're going to have a lot of people trying to pull their weight and try to make things happen in a more just a better environment. So I'm more hopeful and optimistic than this guy is, but he's making some at least good points of things that we need to at least be aware of. My main concern actually has to do with the transportation, because our transit and public transit in the United States is really terrible, and the transportation or the transit between stadiums is going to be hefty. So I don't know. I'm kind of more concerned with the logistical nightmare of getting fans from one location to another across 3 countries. And with our country being so huge, I don't know. Those are my concerns. Those are more of my concerns. And I think they're probably going to have a plan for that. But
will they fix these issues, or will they be prevalent come the 2026 World Cup? And the answer is probably. They probably will fix these issues, because FIFA, and I never ever thought that I'd see the day where I'm saying something positive about this organization, but FIFA is much more strict and professional about the rules they put in place.
So I do agree with him now. I didn't realize he was taking this turn here. I think that he's right with this.
Games that are going to be taking place in the World Cup, in comparison especially to CONMEBOL and their Copa America. Their standards are so much higher, which means that all 11 venues that have been chosen specifically for the USA in the 2026 World Cup are going to have to follow these strict regulations,
Right.
one of which is that the playing surface needs to be a very specific type of grass, and they're not going to budge on that. The second is that the fields must all be the same size and the exact same as what we've seen in the
Yeah, and see, in fact, I actually believe I remember hearing that they have started, like in the last couple of years, renovating some of the NFL stadiums to meet standards, because they know that they're going to have to meet standards. And so they're actually, these stadiums are undergoing millions of dollars in renovations to try to update to where they can actually host a World Cup match. And I think that that's important. I think that you're gonna see that I think this is gonna be a good tournament, man. I'm actually really positive about it, really hopeful about it.
previous few World Cups, and that's going to be about 20% bigger than what we saw in Copa America.
I mean, like I said, Americans actually see how huge this is for our country. Like, this is a good thing. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of fans in our country rooting for the biggest sporting tournament in the world. I would say bigger than the Olympics, honestly. And I'm not being hyperbolic there. I think that this is like well beyond hosting the Olympics. And I think that we realize that, and I think that you're going to see a lot of people trying to make sure that they get their stadiums up to code, make sure that they're really following the regulations of FIFA, that they're trying to really get this right. So I think that he's right about this.
2024, which obviously the NFL stadiums just can't handle. Coincidentally, FIFA have chosen 11 NFL stadiums to host these games. And it's not because the USA doesn't have other options. I mean, take TQL Stadium out of Cincinnati, for example. A soccer-specific stadium with world-class, maybe even exceeding expectations on playing surface and the quality of the stadium itself. The only problem is that it only holds 25,513 people, which is just not enough money for ticket sales that FIFA want. But FIFA are still not going to budge, which means that for these stadiums to be regulation, they have to undergo some extreme renovation.
Like, I remember, specifically, I think Kansas City's like a $50 million project that they're renovating to have it ready by 2026.
Which are already planned, and some are already kind of underway.
Yeah.
Let's take Arlington, Texas, for example, and AT&T Stadium.
Yes.
This stadium is hosting 9 World Cup matches, which is...
By the way, it's a beautiful stadium. By the way, just so you guys know, just so you're prepared. I went to see USA Bolivia there. Now, I'm sure they're renovating it to make it even better for the World Cup. It is a beautiful stadium. There's not a bad seat in that stadium. It is a castle. I love. It's my team. I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm like, this is my NFL team. So I'm very proud of the Dallas venue. It's a beautiful stadium. I've been to several games there, and it's just always a great venue.
The most out of any city that we've seen in any World Cup since 1970, when Mexico City hosted this many, or maybe even a little bit more. But that's going to make it so that Arlington, Texas and AT&T Stadium need to spend about $300 million on renovating the stadium. That is to expand the playing surface by cutting out part of the stands. It's also to bring in the new surface that is going to be required for the FIFA World Cup, and it's also a plan for transportation because that's historically not been the greatest in the USA. So if you want to come to the World Cup in 2026 and we're planning on relying on public transportation to get from one venue to the other, I would lower your expectations quite
drastically.
It's just not that prevalent in the USA because of the country. It's just so big. It's like the size of Europe, but just one country. And some of the matches are going to be on the East Coast. Some of the matches are going to be on the West Coast. In fact, I live in Cincinnati, and the closest match for the World Cup to me is going to be about an 8-hour drive. So just know that I'm about as far away.
Look at that. It's crazy. Bring that map back up. Where's that map? Okay, so he shows an 8-hour drive from Philadelphia to Cincinnati. That's like in a very small region of the U.S. Let me pull it up. So I live like around here, and if you can see that, and to get to my hometown, which is about right here, 9-hour drive. 9-hour drive right there. If you were to drive from this end of Texas to this end of Texas, I think it's like 24 hours. And that's one state. So, yeah. Like, my family lives here. We're going here for Christmas vacation. It's an 11-hour drive for them. So, all I'm saying is, yeah, to go from coast to coast, it's quite a travel. And we just don't have a system of transit that is super easy to use to get around, other than like airlines, which is a logistical nightmare, or just renting a car and driving. Hopefully, I think they've had some sort of talk about having like a bus system that you could use to get around, but that's gonna be interesting. That's for sure.
East Coast. Some of the matches are going to be on the West Coast. In fact, I live in Cincinnati, and the closest match for the World Cup to me is going to be about an 8-hour drive. So just know that I'm about as far away from it as a lot of you guys are across the pond. Either way, you're going to be seeing a lot of Ubers, taxis, and stuff like that. So planning on this transportation like they are in Arlington, Texas, and Dallas, very, very good. But take a look at MetLife Stadium. For example, this is the stadium that is going to be hosting the final of the World Cup. Now zoom out. Look at all those parking spots.
Wow.
That's what every single stadium looks like here in the USA. So get ready for it. Hopefully, it all goes a little bit better than what Copa America did in 2024. Don't forget to subscribe to Nitro Football and like the video. I'll see you.
All right, yeah, check out great video. Go ahead and give him some support. Subscribe. Show some love to Nitro Football. Great video. Really, really appreciate that. And what are your thoughts about this World Cup? Leave it down in the comment section underneath this video. I have some. I think mostly a positive perspective on this World Cup. I think that there are some issues that need to be figured out, but I think that we're gonna put our best minds to work at figuring it out. And I think that a lot is riding on the U.S. hosting a good tournament. Like I don't want it to be an embarrassment where we go, that was the worst tournament. I don't want a situation where we're scrutinized like the Qatar World Cup, where there were a lot of issues with that World Cup. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Smash like on the video. That helps reach more people, more viewers on the channel. That really helps me out. I'd appreciate that, and I'll see you guys in the next video.